Monday afternoon, and it's quite a nice day after a long time. And we have actually had lots of bookings. That's why we were just waiting. And the time changed, and so maybe some people have become a bit confused about the change of time. So I do apologize for starting late. My name is Muhammad Ahmedullah. I'm the secretary of Bricklane Circle. I won't say much about Bricklane Circle, except one or two things. Because there's lots of information on our website, which is bricklancircle.org. But I will just say one more thing before I pass on to Yasmin and introduce Yasmin. Bricklane Circle, we have been organizing seminars and conferences and events. Our main aim is to do something different. Because in the past, we have lots of politically oriented or religiously oriented meetings and events where people from one group normally go to their own meetings and then they reinforce each other's prejudices and views and opinions about others. And we don't get enough opportunity for coming together from different backgrounds and engage with each other and achieve cross-fertilization. So you have BNP, Jamaat, Awami League, and they do their own thing, and you don't get enough opportunity for people to debate and discuss. And we really believe that you need to get people from different backgrounds to come and talk to each other, to understand each other, and also then people will start moderating their own position because they will know that evils that they thought the others they will realize that it's not exactly true. So you need a process of discussion dialogue. And what we also do, we try to encourage people to be critical, to use information, facts and figures, and be logical. Use the rules of logic to engage and improve their knowledge base and so on. Today is a very special day. Good and bad reason. One bad reason was because today the military dictator, General Yahya Khan, he launched an attack in Bangladesh to stop the election result from being implemented, and that caused a nightmare, and we know what happened. But we're not going to go into and discuss the war, what happened, and so on. Myself, we're lucky that Yasmin has agreed to come and speak to us. I wrote to her several months ago after I read about her book. I also read an article which I circulated to everybody. And we thought that her research deals with fresh areas and fresh thinking, and that's what we need to encourage and inspire more people to look at what happened, history, with fresh eyes, with new research, discover new things, and try and use imagination to try and make better sense of what happened and find better political solutions to all the issues and problems that usually result from conflict and so on. Now I think most people have read maybe who Yasmin Saikia is, so I won't say much. I'll just read out a little bit of what we circulated, then I'll pass on to Yasmin, then she'll speak for about maybe 30 minutes or so, about 40 minutes, and we'll have questions and answers. Well, Yasmin is a professor of history and the first holder of the Hardt-Nickachos Chair in Peace Studies at Arizona State University. She's originally from India and educated early in Aligarh Muslim University and then completed PhD and graduate studies in America. And she's going to speak on thinking about peace, oral history and testimony after the 1970 War of Bangladesh.
Okay. In a short but provocative article, Not Home in Empire, Ronajit Guha raises a fundamental question on the dilemma of freedom and its possibility in colonial India by reading the story of George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant. Guha asserts that unfreedom based on anxiety informed Orwell's behavior as a colonial officer who felt compelled by the expectations of his Burmese audience to shoot and kill an elephant that had run amok. In a fleeting instance, Orwell realized the possibility to unfetter from the institution that dehumanized him and act as a man capable of making his own decisions to refuse to kill the elephant. But Orwell failed to actualize that realization. The business of colonialism and the exercise of power beleaguered and trapped both the colonizer and the colonized. Agency remained moot. Taking this as my entry point to reflect on the dilemma of choice and the struggle for freedom that lies beyond entrapped institutional positionings, in this paper I critically investigate the established narratives of the 1971 War of Bangladesh and explore the potential of retelling a radically different story based on survivors' memories from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. The story of 1971 being an ongoing and unfolding narrative, unlike the closed narrative of Orwell's experience, allows me to search and share a possible space of freedom on the platform of humanity, Insāniyat in Urdu, or Manobikota in Bengali. Like Orwell, the survivors of 1971 ask, will we seize the opportunity to act as free agents by recognizing our humanity and write a new narrative after the war? Can the people's narrative break the cycle of hate that is produced and deployed by those in power who continue to divide us using the powerful rhetoric of nationalism and national identity? These questions of survivors allows a unique and humanistic text to emerge, shifting the focus from external institution and state actors to the internal domain of people's memories preserved by individuals. The humanistic narrative of survivors is at the heart of my paper. Survivors' narrative produce a kinder, gentler story, to borrow Abdullahi al-Naim's words, opening a space of freedom and a holistic subcontinental imagination to emerge after violence. My presentation is divided into two sections. In the first section, I explore the story of the history of the transformation of mentality within Pakistan, focusing particularly on the side of official history. Pakistan, that was originally conceived as a common homeland for a variety of Muslims of the subcontinent, soon after its foundation in 1947, assumed a new identity, privileging in association with the people and culture of West Pakistan, particularly with the dominant Punjabi groups. Concomitantly, the people and place of East Pakistan and the Bengali culture were reduced to not being sufficiently Pakistani. In the history textbooks written between 1956 to 1970, Bengalis were represented as recalcitrant. The need to discipline and train them to become obedient to the West Pakistani administration became a project. The failure of this project, I argue, subsequently shaped the image of Bengalis as strangers, Ajnabi, who were deemed enemy, dushman, of Muslim Pakistan. The Bengalis reacted to neglect and discrimination by organizing themselves into political groups demanding more power and better distribution of the economic resources, leading to a mass protest and secessionist movement that was supported and abated by India, Pakistan's arch rival. Finally, in war and extreme violence, Pakistan broke up on December 16, 1971, and a new nation-state of Bangladesh was founded in erstwhile East Pakistan. Soon after the violence of the war, survivors, both men and women of Pakistan and Bangladesh, tried to grapple with the troubled memories to make sense of the losses that they suffered. For survivors, it is the loss of their humanity that is centered in the testimonial evidences that are collected through oral history in Bangladesh and Pakistan. Rethinking Insāniyat or Manobikota, they suggest a critical way of empowering post-conflict societies to function humanely and develop civic responsibilities. In the first section, I engage the story of the official history that circulates in history textbooks and the public domain of Pakistan and counter it with the private voice of Insāniyat that offers a new alternative memory emerging from survivors' experiences. In the second section of this paper, drawing upon individual perpetrators' regained humanistic perspective for redressing the violent past, I highlight the principle of Tawbah, or repentance, that gestures towards perpetrators seeking victims' forgiveness. This is based on a fundamental and extremely significant concept of Islamic justice called Hukuk al-Insan, or rights of humans, which, if it can be utilized, allows for rethinking a process of reconciliation 4 decades after the war. To understand this concept of Insāniyat and Hukuk al-Insan, a slight detour here is essential. In the Islamic tradition, humankind, or insan, is considered to be the best of God's creation and is thus seen as a trustee of the divine. Man, to be human, must journey and quest for evolution by making rational choices and choosing to do well by others. Enjoining good and avoiding evil is a cornerstone of this process according to the Quran. Human, or insan, however, is also blighted by forgetfulness, and thus there is a constant need to reaffirm one's human status by doing good deeds and seeking guidance to stay on course. Humanity is thus both a condition and an ethical position in Islam. Hukuk al-Insan, which is the plural of haq, are rights endowed to people by virtue of their existence. It is not compromisable and is inherent in every person, Muslim or non-Muslim, according to the Islamic perspective. Enjoyment of this right, however, comes with duty towards others. Thus, in order to enjoy this right, one must show responsibility to others, the failure of which requires redressing for the reinstatement of rights that were transgressed. According to survivors, the rights of people were frequently undermined during the war, and so now there is a need to reinsert them for proper functioning of human society. The responsibility to make this requires individual involvement, without which their humanity would remain unreconstituted. The recognition of survivors, particularly perpetrators' understanding of the loss of the human status as insan due to the violence they committed, is a very powerful statement that heralds a beginning process for seeking and working toward justice. The actualization of this process for justice may be utopic, and it may remain confined to the level of a desire rather than be transformed into reality. The impediments in both Bangladesh and Pakistan are far too many, particularly in today's hyper-nationalism. There is no place for human conversations across the borders. But the need to imagine this possibility is a driving force, and it rehumanizes survivors, enabling a new and hopeful narrative to surface, at least in the private domain of people's lives. I privilege this text of memories because it moves us towards a people's ethics and lets us see self in others. The imagined humanity can play a crucial role toward delivering justice for freedom in the subcontinent. Having given this background, I want to start by thinking of the category called stranger to open a historical conversation of the process that ultimately led to violence against enemy groups, the Bengalis in particular, in the War of 1971. Frank Rosenthal, who has done an extremely interesting study of the etymological and historical evolution of the term stranger in Islam, probes two commonly used words for strangers, gharib and ajnabi. He shifts through literary and religious texts of Islam to identify the origin and meanings. According to Rosenthal, the word gharib, which has its root in Semitic language, where it is used to refer to a process of entering, like an intrusion, and thus not welcome, is absent in the Islamic Quranic tradition. But it is not an uncommon concept to tribal members of the Arabian society who pondered on this concern of stranger as an intruder in the literary ruminations. The term ajnabi, on the other hand, is mentioned once in Surah 4, Al-Nisa, the women, in verse 36, where it enumerates different classes of people that are to be treated with kindness and concern. The ajnabi within this group of people are considered the near neighbors and neighbors far away. There has been a lot of discussion on both these categories, but suffice to say here, strangers were not deemed intruders. But as Islam spread and mobility produced the byproduct of stranger, al-gharib, the old and non-Quranic word known to tribal Arabs started to make appearance in literature. Rosenthal suggests that the term ajnabi, however, became well suited to express the modern restriction of stranger to foreigner with a specific meaning of belonging to a different nationality. But the connotation of foreigner or other, developed in the English from alien, continued to be absent from either Arabic words gharib and ajnabi, even with the development of the appearance of new people within Islamic host societies. The Islamic literature, both in Arabic and Persian, particularly the adab literature, discusses a stranger in great details and reflects on this category of people as one who are bereft of love and home. Since all matters human have positive as well as negative side, that was extended to cover the stranger.